All right, good morning, everyone. That I Speak Jesus song that we sang today. I've actually known that song for a while now, and I can't ever sing it all the way through. I get too choked up. And part of the reason is because that's what I try to do every single Sunday, is to just speak Jesus over you. And so it's a very, very important song. Today, every year, there is this giant celebration called the Feast of Tabernacles, or the Festival of Lights. Some people even think this is when Jesus was actually born. For 7 days each year, the Jews would celebrate the Feast of the Tabernacles. It reminded them that for 40 years, they had wandered around in the wilderness before God brought them into the Promised Land. And how God was with them in their wanderings in the wilderness, in the pillar of cloud in the day, which turned into fire at night. So it's just a big celebration, a reminder of what took place and how God provided. In Numbers chapter 9, verse 15, it says, "On the day the tabernacle was set up, the cloud covered it, but from evening until morning, the cloud over the tabernacle looked like a pillar of fire." That would have been an interesting sight to see. It was very different from a lot of the other annual feasts. The first thing that was really significantly different was that for 7 days, get this, for 7 days, the entire nation would intentionally choose not to live in their house, but to camp out instead. Families moved outdoors into temporary shelters made of branches and leaves to remind themselves of the hardships that their ancestors had undergone while living in tents during the 40 years in the wilderness. The second unique thing that I want you to really pay close attention to today is that on the opening night of the celebration, there were a couple of giant menorahs or candelabras that were erected. Each of these candle holders was about 75 feet tall, with huge bowls on top. Each bowl held 10 gallons of oil, and then with great pomp and ceremony, the bowls were lit, and everyone could see. At the end of the feast, at the end of these 7 days, the lights were purposely put out or turned off. The lights were put out. Why did they turn them off every year? Because the Messiah, the rescuer, their King of Kings, had not yet come. They were waiting for the Messiah. He hadn't come, so it was on to another year of waiting. Now imagine the scene. You're in the city of Jerusalem, this walled city. There's a giant festival. It had just finished, and the lights had just been extinguished. Another year had passed, and it appears that there is no Messiah. For several days, at this exact moment in time, people had been attentively listening to Jesus throughout the Festival of Tabernacles for 7 days. And the people were starting to wonder, is Jesus the one we're celebrating? Is Jesus the Messiah? John 7:26 said, they even asked, could our leaders possibly believe that he is the Messiah? That's what's going on. It's the tension of the moment. It was in that context and at that moment, after the lights had been put out, that the next day Jesus was out in public teaching in the temple area. John chapter 8, we catch up with the story. As Jesus was speaking, the teachers of the religious law and Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. "Teacher," they said to Jesus, "this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" They were trying to trap him into saying something that they could use against him, but Jesus instead stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. They kept demanding an answer, so he stood up again and said, "All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." Then he stooped down again and wrote in the dust. What did he write? We don't know. Maybe it was a list of the sins that the men that were making these accusations had been involved in. That would be clever, I think. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest. Probably because they were the wisest. They began to slip away, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up again and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" No, Lord, she said. And Jesus said, neither do I. Go and sin no more. Now leads us up to verse 12. Pay close attention. Imagine how Jesus spinning and turning towards the crowd. Jesus spoke to the people once more and said, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness, because you will have the light that leads to life. All in the context of them just having put out the light. He's saying, I'm the light. Somebody say, I am the light. Now look at your neighbor, say, I am the light. Now, just to be clear, you're not the light, Jesus is the light, but you understand, okay? It's not an accident. It's not an accident that Jesus refers to himself as the light of the world. He does it on purpose. He is the pillar of fire that led the people through the desert. That was Jesus. He is the fundamental reason that the festival has just been celebrated and happening. They were celebrating him even though they didn't know it. He, Jesus, is the light of the world. Jesus is the light in the past, he was the light in the present, and he will be the light in the future. And for many listening to Jesus that day, it would have been the last time. This is really, really powerful. This would be the last time that for many in the crowd that day that they would ever have to put out the fire of that menorah again. Because the Messiah had finally arrived for them. Their Savior had finally come. And somebody here today in this room, maybe you've been waiting for something else in your life. You've been looking, you've been searching, you've been hoping. And everything that you search for ends up not quite being right. You've essentially been putting out the fire year after year because the answer still hasn't been found. Today, I would invite you to consider, perhaps Jesus is the answer. Perhaps you can finally stop searching because he's the one you've actually been searching for all of these years. And maybe you won't ever have to put the light out again. Why is Jesus saying, I am the light? Well, think about what light does. What does light do? When you're confused, light has a way of illuminating your path like a headlight. When you are lost, light has a way of being your beacon, like a lighthouse. When you are in a dark and stormy sea, you can see the light. Once while on a maneuver, a battleship lookout noted a light in the dark off in the distance. It was on a foggy night. They were having a hard time seeing. And after noting the light's coordinates, the captain recognized that the ship was on a collision course with the other vessel. The captain instructed, signal the ship. We are on a collision course. Advise you change course 20 degrees. The return signal countered. Advisable for you to change your course 20 degrees. The captain signaled, I'm a captain. Change your course 20 degrees. The response was, I'm a seaman, second class. You better change your course 20 degrees. By this time, the captain was furious. His signal defiantly ordered, I'm a battleship. Change your course 20 degrees. The reply came, I'm a lighthouse. You make the call. Why? Because lighthouses don't move. Lighthouses don't move. And I want you to catch this today. Jesus is the light of the world. He's your lighthouse, your beacon of hope, if you will let him be. And he doesn't move. He remains the light of the world. No matter how much the world changes, Jesus remains steady. Jesus remains stable. Jesus remains brightly shining for the whole world to know where to go. Because the world is really messed up. And the world is changing so fast. It's hard to even know when you wake up how much the world has changed overnight. It seems like it changes every 15 minutes. But Jesus is steady. He's our bright hope. He is right there. We simply have to see and take his light. Another thing light does is light exposes the problem. When you are wounded, for example, the light will help you see the problem so that you can be healed. The light has a way of exposing blind spots in our life. And I want you to catch this today. When God reveals things to us, when Jesus points out these blind spots, He's not doing it to embarrass you. He's not doing it to shame you. He's doing it to bring healing to the broken parts of your life so that it might be addressed. Now, I'm at a stage in my life, a very interesting stage. It's called middle age. And what this means is that you need reading glasses to see anything up close and personal. Even my notes are in 20 font, which is huge, right? So I started off years ago with 10 font. I can't even see what's on this page at all. So I like to fix watches as a bit of a hobby. And I put on my glasses, and then I grab a magnifying glass also, and I still can't quite see. And so what I have to do is I have to put on a headlamp and turn the light on really, really bright, and then I can see, because the light reveals the problem in the little spaces. The light of Jesus has a way of revealing the problems in our life for the purpose of healing, not for the purpose of condemnation or shame, so that we can be made whole, that the broken parts of our life can be healed. Jesus said, I'm the light of the world. Somebody say, of the world. Of the world. I'm the light of the world. The whole world. Not just the Jews, not just the region, but the whole world, the whole wide world. What does that mean for us today? It means for us today that no matter who you are or where you are from, Jesus is for you. No matter what you've done or how far you've roamed, Jesus is for you. No matter if you've been an adulterous woman or a pompous religious hypocrite, Jesus is the light of the whole world. And He's for you. I am your light, Jesus says. This world that everybody has so many problems with, Jesus desperately loves and came to rescue this broken mess that we have made. Think about this today. The people that you think of as your enemy, Jesus is their light. Amen. The people that really make you angry and frustrated that you don't want to go visit at Christmas, but you're going to anyhow, Jesus is as much their light as He is yours. He is the light, and He will shine brightly to all who will follow.
Amen.
Jesus said, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness. Amen. You won't have to walk in darkness. There is something understated here, but it's a given that you will walk in darkness because the world is dark. You see, we are born with a problem. We're born with a problem. We're born into spiritual darkness. You know, there's a hard reality that we are born already ruined, that we are born with wicked hearts that quickly steer off in the wrong direction. We want to think everybody's just nice and fun, but the truth is you meet a 3-month-old and you know we're born with wicked hearts. Amen. Just try to take that pacifier away and you'll know what I'm talking about. We are born into spiritual darkness in need of rescue. We're in need of light. The whole world is in spiritual darkness because the prince of this age, the illegitimate ruler of this world, Satan, has blinded people. And the light of the world declares, Jesus declares, we no longer have to walk in darkness if we will follow Jesus. If we follow Jesus, we won't walk in darkness anymore because He is the light. That calls all the way back to the psalmist in 119 when he said, your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path. Jesus is that light. And He's making it clear, I'm the light of the psalmist, the light of the fire in the desert, the light of the lampstand that you just put out. To us today, we might even say that light that you could see at the end of the tunnel but could never quite get to, it turns out that's Jesus. And Jesus is the light, and it turns out He's here right now. It's a powerful analogy, light. Because we've all had experiences with darkness. We've all had experiences with darkness and we're like, oh, I wish I had some light. Light and darkness, we all understand. But when we don't have light, we just kind of stumble around, trying to find our way, and it's dark. When my daughter Kyla was born, my wife Jen wasn't able to walk for quite a while afterwards. But Jen kept trying to walk, and her legs would just stop working all of a sudden. And she would fall down. And so for the first month or so, Jen couldn't hold Kyla while she was walking. One night, Jen got up, and she was out in the other room, and she fell down, and she cried out for help. Now, it's the middle of the night. It is pitch dark, and I just hear my wife yelling for help or asking for help in the other room. And I woke up out of a dead sleep and immediately went into like superhero rescue mode, okay? Just whoosh, it's like this. And I imagined the worst possible scenario. Somehow Jen had gotten Kyla and they'd fall down and they were hurt and they were in desperate need or they would die. Kind of, that's what's going on in my mind, right? So I am in this mode. It turns out that Jen had just gone to get some water or something and needed help getting back after her legs had stopped working. I jumped up from my sleep in the pitch dark. For some strange reason, when I jumped up, I didn't jump up and stand on the floor. I jumped up and stood straight up on top of the bed. So here I am on top of the bed, not on the floor, on top of the bed. It's dark. It's dark. Remember, I'm like adrenaline pumped all the way, and it's like a cartoon. Like sheets flying out from under my feet. So I'm going in a full-scale sprint now, pitch dark, heading towards the door. I launch off the bed, going to rescue my family. I launch off the bed, only to find out that the door was not closed. The door was not really open. It was half open. And I jump off the bed, full speed, slam my forehead into the little narrow part of the door. Boom! Knock myself right out. Totally knocked out. On the floor. Like trying to rescue my family, passed out. Now, here we are. My mother-in-law is in the other room because she'd come down to help. She wakes up to all this commotion. Jen is on the floor in the kitchen. I'm in the room, passed out. She doesn't know what's going on. And Kyla is in her room, sleeping just fine. Nothing's wrong with Kyla. I'm sure that my mother-in-law must have thought, how are these kids going to take care of this baby? And she's not knowing who to help, who's in worse shape, right? The whole point of that little trip down memory lane is this. Had the lights been on, I would have made much better choices in that moment had the lights been on. Because when the lights are on, you have an opportunity to see what's really there. You see the truth. And that's what Jesus is. He's the light to help you see what's really going on, what's really happening. And the truth will set you free. Now, if you've noticed in the news over the past several years, the nation of Haiti has experienced one disaster after another. They've had earthquakes and hurricanes and warlords and outrageous political chaos. And this has resulted in a situation where the people are in real trouble, where the power grid is either not on, not working, or severely restricted or compromised, creating even more dangerous situation. Because when you don't have your power grid, you don't have light. And that's a problem in a modern world. Literally, there are giant numbers of people in Haiti with no electricity, no lights, no access to anything that can help them to get it. And today, as we are reminded that Jesus is the light of the world, I think it would be a clever and fun Christmas project for us to not just bring the spiritual light to the world, but also bring some physical light to the world as an example. Because now we all know what happens when you wake up in the dark and go running off your bed. And we don't want that to happen to anybody else. Next week, we're going to give you all an opportunity to help bring light to the individuals in the community of Kahes, Haiti. What we're going to be doing is this. We're going to be buying some special rechargeable magnetic lights that are designed to be stationary and portable, like this, along with some battery packs that are solar powered, like this. This is actually much fancier than it looks, okay? But it's a rechargeable solar battery pack where they can actually charge devices like this or cell phones or whatever would be needed for other devices. The cost is about $35 a piece, and our on-ground organization needs about 100 of these. Now, clearly, some lights won't solve all the problems of Haiti. But to the families that have been without light for months or access to it, to again have it after a very long time will make a huge difference. So next week, I'm asking you to buy 100 lights. You can bring some, so we can bring some literal, physical light and a glimmer of hope to some folks that are in a very desperate moment right now. The cost is about $35 a piece, is $35 a piece. And if you would like to give more than $35, that's fine. As soon as we cross $3,500, we'll put the rest towards other humanitarian efforts. And in the Church Center app, it'll be tagged Light for Haiti. It's in there already. This might be a fun project for you and your kids to do for Christmas as well. Jesus says, I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you won't have to walk in darkness, because you will have the light that leads to life. It leads to life. Away from death towards life. Notice it says that leads to life. Somebody say leads. Who's doing the leading? Jesus is doing the leading, not you. Not me. Jesus is doing the leading. The light does the leading. We don't lead the light. That's the fundamental problem with our response to God, is we want to still be the one leading the light. We still want to be God. God is saying, you follow me, it will lead to life. Like the pillar of fire in the desert that led the people in the wilderness, we must follow. There are some people out there that specialize in like sermonizing and messaging with guilt and shame and condemnation. It's like they don't understand Jesus at all and what's really going on. You see, the light of Jesus doesn't overlook the wrongs and sins of our lives, but it does always offer us hope to walk in the light, to walk towards life, and not to live in condemnation or shame or fear. It's very easy to point out the bad things going on all around us. It's very easy to point out the wrongs in someone else's life. It's very easy to point out the wrongs in this thing or that thing. The people that have a way of pointing out the wrongs without providing any hope or solutions are fundamentally flawed. Because true light doesn't just point out darkness, it provides escape from that darkness. You see, as the worship team comes up, Jesus is the great revealer. And Jesus is also our great revelation. Jesus is our hope out of despair. He is the path out of destruction. Jesus didn't come to condemn the lost. He makes that quite clear. Instead, he came alongside the lost as a spiritual flashlight and said, "Let me help you find the way." Jesus never ignored the adulterous woman's sins. Instead, he offered her the hope and the light of the world. And that light and hope was him. And that same light and that same hope is available for you and me today. His name is Jesus. Would you stand with me as we close? Friends, today as you consider how you're going to respond, let Jesus be your light. If there's some broken areas in your life and heart, let Jesus help you find your way. If you're not sure which way to go, let Jesus help you find your way. Today, let's spend some time in prayer. The altars are open. You can spend some time up here if you like. Let's just respond to Jesus today.